What's up, all you minties? Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, and join me today for an overview of all these books coming out this week from Marvel Comics. So, let's get started. Before getting started, I want to give a huge thank you to David Gabriel and the fine folks at Marvel for sending us advanced copies of these books. All of these books are due out in the direct market and book market on July 19th. So here we have some epic collections, a Marvel Masterwork, and a big gallery edition. And a couple of these have been delayed for a while, so I'm so glad to finally see New Mutants actually out. And I know some of my Canadian brothers and sisters already have, I think, a copy of it as of last week. But yes, it is good to keep going with the epic collections and hopefully less and less delays. So as always, I will put timestamps in the description of the video so you can jump around in case you're not interested in a particular book. But in case you just love hearing my voice the entire time, by all means, let the video play out. And don't forget to smash that like button, please. That does help with our YouTube algorithm and our channel keep growing. So, let's go ahead and get started. Let's talk about the Amazing Spider-Man Epic Collection, Man-Wolf at Midnight. So here we have a new era of the Amazing Spider-Man. This is Volume 8, 1973 to 1975. Here's what it collects. Retail price of this, $39.99. So, this collects Amazing Spider-Man 124 to 142, Giant Size Superheroes number 1, and material from Marvel Treasury Edition number 1. So here we have a brand new character. This is the Man-Wolf. As a matter of fact, I think Man-Wolf at Midnight, that's taken from the Marvel Treasury Edition number 1 title. And it's a new character, but it was somebody that we've met in the past previously, which Spider-Man has been known to do. Like, you don't find out who the Green Goblin is until a couple of years later after the introduction of the Green Goblin. But it is a character that you saw early on in the adventures of Spider-Man. And Man-Wolf's a pretty interesting character, so I assume they couldn't call him Wolfman because, well, of the Universal monsters. But then again, I don't know. Does somebody really have a copyright on that particular name? It's like, I thought it would be like out there in the domain like Dracula. Here's Kangaroo, who remarkably doesn't look like a kangaroo, but just a guy that can jump really good. You have the Return of the Vulture. Now you have Gil Kane doing some of the artwork. It is still Jerry Conway. And you have a newcomer coming on, and that is Ross Andru. And I'm a big fan of Ross Andru. You also have John Romita Jr. doing some inking and some layouts for the first time. This is what you see on the cover here with the fight against Hammerhead. But this is a really interesting collection because it's called Man-Wolf at Midnight, but it's really the beginning of what is known as the Clone Saga. And it also introduces us to this character right here, the Executioner. I'm just kidding, that's what I think what initially they wanted to call him, but this is the Punisher. So created by Jerry Conway and Ross Andru. And this is a guy that's hired by this character right here, the Jackal. Another character, we've seen his secret identity before in the pages of Amazing Spider-Man, but now we see him in his full villain guise. And of course, he's the whole reason why the Clone Saga happened. So really, this is the beginning of the Clone Saga, so they could have called this Enter the Punisher, Enter the Clone Saga. Why would you call it Enter the Clone Saga? The original classic Clone Saga, which we've seen collected before. The Spider Buggy. Hell yes. He actually keeps that around for a long time. You have the team up here with the Human Torch. There is an awesome wedding in this particular volume right here that I don't think anybody saw coming, especially Peter Parker. This is the Man-Wolf at Midnight. So is that from... Yeah, so this is from Giant Size Superheroes, number 1. And it is the story of Man-Wolf. There is a Man-Wolf collection. It's pretty cool because there's a lot of stories that haven't been collected before, like the ones by George Perez. Here's the Amazing Spider-Man 135. I love this because now we have the Tarantula, the Punisher. We have Harry Osborn just snapping. And as a matter of fact, in this particular collection, you kind of see where Harry Osborn is going with his character arc. Because, of course, this is after the big tragic death in Peter Parker's life, the demise of the original Green Goblin, and, well, let's just say there's a new Green Goblin around, and the Parker luck is starting to suck again. And there's Grizzly, and of course more of the Jackal. So the Jackal's this character that's kind of playing things behind the scenes. He's hiring goons to go after Spider-Man. And that's kind of what you get throughout most of this particular volume. And of course that awesome Ross Andrew artwork. There's the spider buggy again. And a Mysterio. But didn't Mysterio die? Man, it's never easy for old Peter Parker. Alright, now let's check out these extras. Here's the Marvel Treasury Edition #1. And all the extras in the back. The book has 416 pages, by the way. All the house ads are back here. Man, they were really promoting that book. The layouts by Gil Kane. And yeah, that's what I thought. They were going to call him the Grim Reaper, maybe. The Executioner. Character designed by, of course, John Romita, who was just designing about every character back then, including the old Knucklehead Wolverine. More unused artwork. The calendar. I love that they put all this stuff in here. And then I think this is a film? It's a student. Okay, it's a student film. Wonder if that ever got released out to the public. Like if you can find it on YouTube. But anyway, this is the volume 8 of The Amazing Spider-Man. Man-Wolf at Midnight. Finally, we have New Mutants Epic Collection, The End of the Beginning. And some of these issues have been collected in, I believe, X-Force Volume 1. Maybe I'm thinking of the Omnibus, I'm sorry. But Volume 8, this wraps up all of New Mutants. Ending with issue number 100. So this collects issues 95 through 100, and you're probably wondering, what the hell? How's it gonna just collect those issues of New Mutants? Well, it also collects all of X-Tinction Agenda in here, too. So you have Uncanny X-Men 270 to 272, X-Factor 60 to 62. You also have the New Mutants Annual number 7, New Warriors Annual number 1, X-Men Annual 15, and X-Factor Annual number 6, which of course is the Kings of Pain story arc. Which is, honestly, I always thought the first appearance of X-Force right before X-Force number 1 launched. So it kicks off with the X-Tinction Agenda. You have a big reunion with the X-Men and the New Mutants. A lot of the characters thought dead are coming back. And, of course, drawn by the phenomenal and legendary Jim Lee. Man, love that stuff. But the New Mutants, I think it collects the entirety of the event because the New Mutants are really affected by this particular crossover. You have the death of some characters. Some of the characters just stay gone after this. And the New Mutants start falling apart after the X-Tinction Agenda. Some of them end up leaving the team, and they're just left over with just a few characters. I think the only characters that stuck around, well, the only one that stuck around from the very first graphic novel is Cannonball. Boom Boom sticks around for a little while, and she had just joined the team a couple of years before this. But we have new characters. Did this... Oh, yes, that's right. This did get resolved in the pages of X-Force, like 31, 33. Always like this look of Cable, because whenever you're reading out of your library, this is the way I read my Omnis. White gloves on. My readers. But yes, this is the beginning of the end. And of course, you have issue 98 collected in here. And I have to talk about that because how dare I not? Because that is also a huge, big appearance of a brand new character. And of course, I'm talking about Gideon. That's right. One of the greatest Marvel characters. I'm sure he'll get a movie someday. But how could I not talk about him? Oh, and also Domino is introduced in this issue. But is it really Domino? I don't know. And then some, what is this guy? Deathstroke? The Spider-Man? Yeah, that guy. Deadpool. Anyway, so this is where Cable decides to bring Domino into this and say, okay, we need to put these kids together in one team. We need to make an X-Force, if you will. And I actually love that about this book. That they're just sitting around trying to figure out, okay, who could we use on our team? Who is still around? Who can we manipulate in a way to join our X-Force? I love that. I mean, I know that there's quite a division when it comes to Rob Liefeld's artwork. But reading this as a kid, like, monthly, there was no experience like this going on. Not even in X-Men. Taking a team that you know, innocent kids, and making them into like a militant team, that was crazy. And then you have the introduction of this badass right here, Shatterstar. And I mean badass because the dude, well, as he says, does whatever it takes to win. Like, yeah, this is so awesome. I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one that thought this was awesome. Whenever he's being picked up by these guys from the Mojoverse, and there's this awesome spread page. Yeah, right here. Thought that was so cool. Like, he just stabs him right there. He goes through his own body. And he's like, yeah, doing whatever it takes to win. This is where Cable warns Mask not to ever come back. This is Mask. He looks a little bit different than what you're probably used to. Tells him not to mess around with his team. And then, of course, the big reveal at the very end with the character of Strife. And to be continued in X-Force 1. But not before you get the Kings of Pain storyline. Now, it's going to be interesting to see if Kings of Pain... Because it kicks off with this issue. Oh, okay, so they are collecting that. So it does kick off with New Mutants Annual number 7. And after you get past that part of the Kings of Pain, part 1, you get this Freedom Force story right here, The Killing Stroke, part 1. I think it's a 3-parter. So I'm curious to know if they collect parts 2 and 3 of this with the rest of the book. Because while it's not New Mutants, it is important to know the outcome of what happens to the Freedom Force. Because after this, there is no more Freedom Force. Oh man, that Art T-Bird pinup right there, I remember that. And then this is the pinup that they use for the direct market cover of X-Force Omnibus 1. And here's New Warrior. Yeah, New Warriors, baby. So the crossover with the Kings of Pain, it's a return of an X-Men villain. Moira McTaggart and all Muir Island plays a big role in this. This is before, and I mean right before the Muir Island saga. So they're all acting a little bit out of character. I always loved the design of that character right there. Thought that was really cool and would have made a cool toy. So let's see, after the... Yeah, okay, so they are collecting the Killing Stroke, it looks like. So I'm sure part 3 will be collected in there. That's awesome. That way you get to see the fate of the Freedom Force, who played a really big part in the X-Men's lives. And as far as the extras in the back, of course, we have some Marvel swimsuit issue stuff. And what is that? The Kings of Pain. I've never seen that. The Kings of Pain promotional art. It's probably in the omnibus. This is the second printing right here and the third printing. That book was so stupid and popular. I didn't get a first printing. When it first came out, I actually had to settle for the third printing, the silver one. And X-Force Magazine. And this is the premiere hardcover, whenever they're recoloring. And this is the variant that they use for the omnibus with new colors. But the book retails for $44.99. And it has 516 pages on it. And that is the New Mutants, The End of the Beginning. Alright, it is Spine watching time. Now, I'll be holding up the Spine to the gallery edition of Contest of Champions when I talk about the book, but here are the rest of the books that come out this particular week. Alright, let's keep going. Alright, next up, Peter Parker, The Spectacular Spider-Man, Marvel Masterworks, Volume 5. Covers collected in here. The book retails for $75. And, of course, the Masterwork treatment. So, and I have some good news. Remember, I just said that they're starting to reprint these, or they are going to next year. All the way with the very first Marvel Masterworks, Amazing Spidey Volume 1. So this collects Spectacular Spider-Man 56 through 66, and Spectacular Spider-Man Annual number 3. Here's your wonderful introduction by Roger Stern. Just talking about the time that he was writing Spectacular Spider-Man, how he didn't have an ongoing monthly artist, how they just had to have fill-in artists come in, and then how he was offered the job of writing Amazing Spider-Man. And writing Amazing Spider-Man meant that he had to leave this book. So if you're a completist and you want to keep going with Spectacular Spider-Man, and you have the Roger Stern Spider-Man Omnibus, then this collects issues 63, 64, and 65, and 66 that are not in that. I think the omnibus ends with issue 62. So this does collect the Bill Mantlo stuff. You also have Mark Grunwald, Stephen Grant write some of the stories in here. And then, of course, all these different artists. You have Frank Miller supplying some of the cover art. Ed Hannigan, Jim Shooter filling in for a couple of issues, doing some of the layouts. So not only was he editor, but he was also doing layouts. John Byrne doing a couple of issues. Greg LaRocque, Jim Sherman, and Mary Severin, just to name a few of the artists that supply the pencils and inks for this particular title. I always thought it was interesting. Spectacular Spider-Man really wasn't known to have created new characters. Like, Jack-o'-lantern was a character that was in Machine Man, but I think Uncle Raj just wanted to bring him over to Spectacular Spider-Man because he thought, hey, the character kind of fits that Spider-Man villain look. Yeah, and honestly, he does, because I always thought that that was like the upgrade to the Green Goblin. After the Green Goblin died, we have this guy on a glider with a pumpkin head, so it makes sense. This is the Shrike, the Killer Shrike. So it's like all these borrowed villains, or returning villains, rather. And then you have this particular story where Spider-Man has to protect Marla Madison, and of course that is J. Jonah Jameson's one true love, from the Will-O-Wisp. And it's like the return of the Will-O-Wisp. And we also have the Ringer. This is the one that's drawn by John Byrne, and we have this mysterious character that's going around kind of using the Ringer to get a brand new costume. So it's a character that we've seen in the past, and by the end of this, he gets an updated costume. And I love the last page of this particular issue. Yeah. So, of course, I'm talking about the Beetle. They wanted to bring the Beetle back, and Uncle Raj said, you know, let's update him. So it was up to John Byrne to update the look. And this is the look that the Beetle kept for a long time. I wanted to go back to this cover. I just... the cover's so simple and so ridiculous. Can there ever be covers like this again? I love that. You have the Beetle and Gibbon down there asking... or demanding, we want the Spectacular Spider-Man. So it is the return of Gibbon, this big hairy guy. He lives again, and there's the Beetle. And then by the end of Roger Stern's run, it is also the return of Man-Wolf. Bill Mantlo steps in as the new writer. I love this right here. This was really cool. I think this is from the annual. And it's kind of like catching up with the life of Peter Parker / Spider-Man through a photo album, like Aunt May's photo album. I thought that was really cool. So it's like capturing all the important parts of Peter's life, all the happy moments, nothing really sad. I thought that was a really cute way of, like, if you were new to the comic book, like where he's been in all his life. Then this feels like an Archie comic, and I think on purpose. And of course we have some bios here. There's Gibbon and Morbius, Dr. Jonas Harrow, Hammerhead, in the fight with Moonstone. By now, this is, I think, the final issue of Roger Stern, because he ends up leaving the book after this. So all he does is the plot, and then Bill Mantlo writes the actual dialogue. This is the Goldbug issue? Yeah, beware the glittering Goldbug. So it's characters like that you see through here. It's not till much later that you start seeing introduction of characters. Actually, in this particular volume, you do have an introduction to two very popular characters that have stuck around for a long time, ended up with their own mini-series, had their own ongoing series, and of course I'm talking about Cloak and Dagger. Now, Bill Mantlo was writing Spectacular Spider-Man before Roger Stern took over, so he was no stranger to writing this particular character. But yes, this is the introduction of Cloak and Dagger to Runaway Teens. And of course, they went on, they became so popular, they got their own series, they kept returning. Here's the return of Kraven the Hunter, and Calypso is there. It's a freaky looking cover. And then the return of Electro towards the end here. Now, as far as the extras, we do have some original pencil arts back here. And let's see, some finished artwork. This is the Ed Hannigan and Jim Mooney art. The cover here by Frank Miller. This is from issue number 60. This is the cover that they used for this particular volume. I actually really like that. It's simple to the point, and it is Frank Miller. Original art right there, the introduction of Cloak and Dagger. Matter of fact, speaking of Cloak and Dagger, it's what all this is. Original art from that particular issue. And there's a lot. Who owns all this? Courtesy. Okay. Weston Allen. Apparently, he really liked Cloak and Dagger. He owns just about every page, if not every page. That's awesome. And of course, as always, the biographies towards the end of the books. Now, that's something that I just did an overview of my Amazing Spider-Man Omnibus Volume 1. My first printing actually had the bio, so they were kind of keeping it like the Marvel Masterworks, but they kind of did away with that. And then, of course, where you can find more Marvel Masterworks or what other volumes there are. The book has 348 pages and retails for $75. And that is the Spectacular Spider-Man Volume 5 of the Marvel Masterworks. Last but certainly not least, the Marvel Gallery Edition Contest of Champions. Now, this is a big book. Here it is compared to the size of a trade paperback. So you can see how much bigger these books are. I've done overviews of them, and if you look at my channel where I talk about the different collected editions, I do talk about these. So it is a hardcover. Oh, and I did want to show the spine right here, because I said I would. So you have Cap and Wolvie up here, Iron Man and Daredevil down there, and then the back of the book. The book retailing for $44.99. So what the heck is exactly the Contest of Champions? Well, started off as a like a tie-in to the Olympics in the late 70s. You can find all this out by reading the introduction. This is the same introduction that has been collected before in the premiere hardcover. It's the same introduction from the trade paperback with the freaky cover. I think they might collect the freaky cover, if you know what I'm talking about here, towards the end of this in the extras. But pretty much, yeah, it started like, well, we'll have our own Olympics, and then the U.S. pulled out of the Olympics, and they decided, okay, well, we have the story, we have all these pages drawn, let's just sit on it. Then a few years later, in the early 80s, they decided, hey, you remember that thing we did for the Olympics, that tie-in? We were going to have 3 issues. Well, let's go on and release it. But what they didn't realize is that, holy crap, a lot of the characters have changed. A lot of the lineups have changed. And we'd introduce a whole new characters for Marvel Comics. So that's how it started off. So this is the brainchild of Mark Gruenwald, Bill Mantlo, Stephen Grant, Tom DeFalco, and then of course you have John Romita Jr. drawing it with Pablo Marcos inking it. But because they had to do so many touch-ups on additional artwork and adding new characters and changing characters out, they did credit Bob Layton as, let's see here, additional art. So Bob Layton did end up redrawing this for John Romita Jr. So that's how this series came to be. But this also happens to be the very first Marvel crossover. Now, we've had the Defenders-Avengers War, but this is the first time that a big, like, Marvel crossover happened with different teams. Not just the Defenders and Avengers, but the X-Men, Alpha Flight, the Avengers, the Fantastic Four. They're all put together into one big story. So it was a big deal back then to have all these characters together. I mean, this is before Secret Wars. This is before every summer event we've had since. The days of the Mutant Massacre, or Evolutionary War, or Atlantis Attacks. I don't know why I chose Atlantis Attacks, but hey, that was a summer event. But you get the idea. This is long before that. So in this particular story, we have the Grandmaster and this other character named, well, let's just say they go as the Unknown. And they have a gamble going. The Grandmaster wants the return of his brother, the Collector. The Collector died at the hands of Korvac during the Korvac saga in the Avengers. And the Unknown is like, sure, I'll bring your brother back. But if I win, well, then that means you get to come with me. And you get the idea that the Grandmaster is going to end up dying if his characters don't win. So they each choose 12 characters to represent them. So there were some new characters that were introduced through these very pages here. But you have characters like Blitzkrieg. Here, let me go back to this page right here. This shows you Talisman and Shamrock, the Collective Man. Yeah, so right here, it introduces new characters, newer characters to the Marvel Universe. You got Captain Britain and Black Knight. They all get abducted. So you have characters like Talisman, there's Shamrock right there, Sabra, the Collective Man, the Arabian Knight, Blitzkrieg, and Defensor. That's what my friends would call him. And I was like, he's not a freaking Transformer, it's Defensor. And then you have this interesting character that I'm sure I'm going to butcher his name. He's Le Peregrine. Le Peregrine, I think that's how you pronounce it. But he's a new French hero. So I kind of dug that they chose older characters and newer characters for both teams, representing each of them. And of course, the heroes aren't really given an option. You know, they have to fight because they're, well, you can find out for yourself why they have to fight. It all, of course, has to do with the Earth. And what's going to happen to the Earth if they don't fight. But here we have, pretty much, they have to collect these golden pieces of this globe. There's 4 pieces scattered around the world, and they have to fight each other for the pieces. So we have like 3-on-3 right now. You have the Grandmasters team, for example, here. You have Talisman, Daredevil, and Darkstar. And then the Unknowns team with Sunfire, Invisible Girl, and Iron Fist. And that's pretty much how each of these stories go. They all have to fight. I love this fight right here. You have Wolverine and Black Panther fighting each other in here. Then you have the Thing duking it out with Vanguard. It's pretty cool. And the artwork is awesome. Now, you can find out how it ends because it's pretty interesting how it ends. How it ends and how do I put this without spoiling it? Let's just say that the writers made a little bit of mistake when they were doing the story. Because how it ends isn't really the way that most people saw it ending. So they had a sequel planned. And I'm not talking about the Contest of Champions 2 from the I think that was the mid-90s or so. I'm talking about this right here, the crossover between the West Coast Avengers and the Avengers. And the West Coast Avengers and Avengers are now having to fight each other, and it's now the return of the Collector, who was dead in the first series here. And he has propositioned them to drink this poison and fight in the afterlife. But that's not really the cool part, because we've seen heroes fight each other. It happens all the time, still happening to this day. The cool part is when they have to fight dead characters. I thought that was awesome, and that happens in in this volume that's got so many artists doing it. But all these returning characters right here, like the original Black Knight, Captain Marvel, Baron Blood, Drax, and of course some of them have returned through time. They have to fight those characters. And as a kid, I remember reading this and I thought, this was so awesome. To me, this was better than the original Contest of Champions. And I know that's probably blasphemous, but I love that. This is a John Romita Jr. page that's inked by Bill Sienkiewicz. So you have the new Thor fighting against, I think it's the Executioner. Yeah, it's so awesome. But that's all that's collected in here. It's 168 pages. And again, retails for $44.99. And this is a little bio on the characters, like when they first appeared. Like, you even have characters that appeared in Micronauts first, which is awesome. But the Collective Man tells you the first appearance in the Contest of Champions. The Black Knight, first appearance. And they even have, interesting. I didn't see any, but let me just check something. Okay, well, there are some characters in the background that I didn't see. But let's go back to this. So this kind of gives you, like, a little bit of first appearances, the dead superheroes. So this is before the handbook to the Marvel Universe. The creepy cover I was talking about, no offense to Pepe Moreno. I'm sure he's a wonderful, talented artist. But holy crap, that is the stuff of nightmares right there. That face on the, I assume that's supposed to be the Grandmaster. And then original pages here. And that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing any of these books, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content and page count of each of these collected editions. Let me know in the comments down below which ones you're picking up, if this is the way that you're collecting New Mutants or Amazing Spider-Man, if you are getting the Spectacular Spider-Man, and if you're one of those that, hey, this has a little more issues than that Roger Stern omnibus, or if this is just the way that you've been getting Spectacular Spider-Man in Marvel Masterworks format, and what you thought of the very first Marvel crossover event. This was the Uncanny Omar. Leave your comments, questions down below. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications to let you know when our videos are going live. We are on Spreadshop and Patreon. Amazing ways to support the channel if you can do so. More importantly, everyone, stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.